My own daughter slammed a stack of bills in front of me and told me to pay rent or get out of the house I bought 20 years ago. In that moment, something inside me went quiet. Not hot, not loud. Quiet the way a lake goes still when winter puts its hands on it. She had no idea the deed was still in my name. She had no idea that one decision could turn her world upside down. My name is Frank Harper. And this is how betrayal in my own kitchen led me to sell the house my daughter was living in. And what I did 3 months later, that changed everything. Looked up at Karen. I used to carry her on my shoulders through Ozark trails. She begged for ice cream after Sunday church. Now her face was tight, impatient, like I was a burden she had been forced to drag along. Patrick shifted in his chair, but didn't say a word. He rarely did when it came to this. I pay you every month, I said. My voice sounded thin in my own ears. Not enough, she snapped. Taxes are going up. Insurance is higher. You sit here all day watching TV while we work to keep this place afloat. It's not fair. There were a dozen truths I could have dropped between us like cards. The house on Maplewood Lane in Springfield, Missouri, the roof over her head was mine. I signed the deed in 2004 after a $2 million lottery win I never told anyone about. Every rent check I handed her these last months was money moving from one pocket to the other. My pockets because sometimes peace is a ritual and the price of it is theater. But the words stuck like ash. I folded the top bill. I nodded, like a man agreeing to his own erasure. Karen's eyes narrowed. So what's it gonna be, Dad? Can you pay? Or do I need to start looking for a new place for you? The air in the kitchen felt heavy. Patrick glanced at the clock and mumbled something about needing to get to the office. He kissed her cheek and slipped out, leaving us staring at each other across the table like strangers bound by blood and nothing else. I stood, legs a little unsteady, but honest enough to carry me down the hall to my room on the first floor. I shut the door and leaned against it. Pay the rent or get out circled my head like a dark bird. On the desk by the window lay a photograph of my late wife, Margaret, smiling under a July sun that didn't know it would ever set. I picked it up and whispered, so softly even I barely heard it. I don't know where we went wrong, Maggie. Maybe I gave too much. Maybe I didn't teach them what respect costs. Through the thin walls came the slam of cabinets, the click of heels, the bright scent of lemon cleaner like a promise the house could not keep. I sat by the window and watched Maplewood Lane, the trees just turning toward fall. A man can take only so much before something inside him breaks. Mine didn't break its set. I opened a drawer and took out a plain white envelope. Inside was a business card. Thomas Grant, Ozark Realty Group. His voice from last week was still in my ears. That house could go for 17, maybe 760. Market's hot. I rubbed the card's edges like it could steady my hands. Karen thought she had me cornered, an old man with a pension and a shrinking place at the table. She had no idea the ground under her feet was mine. I put the card away, closed the drawer, and drew a long breath. I wouldn't answer her ultimatum with words. When it came, my answer would be louder than anything I could say. The morning dragged like wet rope. I moved through the house, touching the backs of chairs, the cool kitchen stone where Margaret used to dust flour like snow. Karen kept the place spotless, as if shine could hide the cracks spreading under the polish. Emily came downstairs with her backpack slung on one shoulder, brown hair in a messy ponytail, eyes soft and serious. Morning. Grandpa was the only one who still greeted me like I mattered. Morning, Em, I said. She poured cereal and sat across from me. You okay? She asked, careful the way young people are when they suspect the truth weighs more than they do. I'm fine, I lied. Just a little tired. She talked about her classes at Missouri State, a project with roommates, a professor who treated deadlines like gospel. I listened and nodded, and offered small encouragements while my mind circled the folded notice like a hawk. When she rose to leave, she kissed my cheek. Don't let Mom stress you out, she whispered. Not cruel, just true. She saw more than anyone wanted to admit. The door clicked shut. Silence set down its heavy bag. I sat a long time, staring at the bills, till I heard tires crunch the driveway and boots on the steps. Brian, if Karen's disapproval was a tight smile, Brian's was a shove. He came in without knocking, all cold. Air and impatience, taller than me by an inch, and always needing the room to know it. "Dad," he said. "Brian, you got the memo?" He tapped the counter where the bills sat like a dare. "We can't carry you. It's not sustainable." "Been paying," I said. He scoffed. "Peanuts." "Right." "Utilities alone, this is math." I didn't tell him how. Many nights I'd done math at this table until my hands found grooves where the calculator sat. I didn't tell him how Margaret clipped coupons until the scissors creaked. I didn't tell him about the 2004 ticket, cashed under humming fluorescent lights 2 towns over, tucked into a trust because luck is loud and you keep it quiet or it leaves. "I'll have an answer by Friday," said. "You'll be out by Friday. If you don't," he said. He left like a storm through a screen door. I waited until the frame stopped shivering. Then I called Thomas. "Frank," he said, warm. "You thinking what I'm thinking?" "I'm thinking you should bring that photographer," I said. Thomas showed up before noon with a woman in jeans and a camera who could make a sink look important. He moved through the rooms with a practiced eye, taking notes about light and trim and the way afternoon sat in the living room like it had paid rent. We stood on the porch while the camera clicked. "You ready?" he asked. "I'm done being unready," I said. "We'll list tomorrow," he said. "Quick close." 45 days, I said. "I'll serve notice today." "It's your house," he said, simple as a hammer. After he left, I called an attorney, Shelby Pike. She'd once untied a zoning not for my neighbor and never raised her voice to do it. I need to terminate a month-to-month tenancy. Occupants are my adult daughter and her husband. I own the property outright. "Understood," she said. "I'll draft a 30-day notice. Tape 1 to the door. Mail 1 certified. Don't change locks while they're inside. Don't move their belongings. If there's a disturbance, call Springfield PD for a civil standby. Breathe." "I'm not looking for a fight," I said. "Fights don't ask permission," she replied. "Check your email in 10. At 3 p.m., I printed the notices. The printer clunked like it had a conscience. Taped 1 to the front door with blue painter's tape and slid the other into the mailbox. I took photos, date, time, angle because, where families are concerned, paper is kinder than memory. Karen came home at 5. She saw the paper on the door before she set her purse down. She tore it off like it owed her money and slapped it on the counter. "What is this?" she asked, voice sharp. "A notice to terminate your month-to-month occupancy," I said evenly. 30 days, I'm selling the house. "Can't," she said. "I can," I said. "I am. This is my home," she said. "It was," I said softly. "It hasn't been my home in a long time." She laughed once, brittle. "You're punishing me, protecting me," I said, drawing a line I should have drawn years ago. Patrick walked in and saw a scene that asked for a spine. He reached for a phrase instead. "We'll talk about this." "We are talking," I said. 30 days. I'll fight it," Karen said. "You can try," I said. "I won't budge." She stormed down the hall, each heel a stamp. Patrick followed, giving me a look that was half apology, half don't. "Make me choose." The kitchen went quiet, the kind of quiet where you can hear the fax breathing. At 8:20, there was a soft knock. Emily slipped in, opened the fridge like always, grabbed 2 waters, and leaned against the counter. "Mom's mad," she said. "I know. She says you blindsided her." "I warned her in all the ways that don't count," I said. "Silence doesn't file paperwork." She tried to smile and couldn't make it hold. "What do you want me to do?" "Be you," I said. "Finish your classes. Be kind where you can, firm where you must. If you need a place, you have one with me." She blinked fast and hugged me hard. "You smell like sawdust," she said. "Against my shirt, I was in the garage," I said, "fixing the drawer your grandma always cursed." By morning, the listing was live. By lunch, we had 3 showings. By dinner, Thomas texted, "Full price offer pending inspection." Clean. I went. For a drive? Sometimes a man needs his thoughts to have scenery. I passed the university where Emily took night classes, then turned down a street of old brick buildings that looked like they remembered more than they said. A blue-painted wall caught my eye, cheerful against the dusk. A brass plaque read, "The Lantern Apartments." For rent sign hung in the window with a phone number in thick marker. I don't know why I stopped. The color. The name. The fact that once you move one piece of your life, you start noticing other pieces already in motion. I sat in the car and watched a young couple carry a lamp up the steps, laughing at nothing. A landlord with a ring of keys let them in. The building swallowed them, then breathed them out the front windows as light. I drove on. Streetlights woke one after another like small decisions. 2 days later, the inspection came and went. The buyers were a young family who loved the maple in front and the way morning light pooled on the stairs, left the workbench and the mower in the garage with a note. These belong to the house. Let them teach you their tricks. On the 30th day, Officer Malone stood by while Karen and Patrick loaded the last of their boxes into a borrowed pickup. Karen didn't look at me. Patrick did once. There was a softer thing in his eyes neither of us had earned. Emily hugged me and pressed a key into my palm. "Keep this one." "I will," I said. They drove away. The house held its breath, then let it out. That night, I slept at a motel off Glenstone, under a humming air conditioner and a picture of a boat that had never seen water. In the morning, I ate a waffle I didn't want and called Thomas. Tell the buyers I'll leave the extra." "Paint cans," I said. "The porch gets thirsty, Frank," he asked carefully. "You okay?" "I'm on my feet," I said. When I checked out, I drove past Maplewood one last time and didn't stop. I took the long way back toward town, slowed when I passed. The blue wall again, the Lantern Apartments. Now, a different sign hung in the front. Window, vacancy, month-to-month welcome, new number. I parked. I went in. The lobby smelled faintly of old coffee and Murphy oil soap. A woman behind the desk wore readers on a chain. "Marla," she said, offering a hand. "Assistant manager? You looking for a unit?" "Just getting a feel for the place," I said. "My family is looking for something temporary. We get a lot of that," she said kindly. Third floor walk-ups, decent bones. Heat knocks in the winter like it owes you money, but we fix what breaks. I thanked her and left a card with a number I still used when I wanted distance. "If the owner ever decides to sell," I said lightly, "call me." "Just got bought 10 months ago," Marla said with a shrug. "It's Mr. Feldman. He's not young, but he's stubborn. Says the building's his last friend." I smiled. Friends change. Stepped back out into the heat. A car door slammed down the block, and I glanced up like a man who hears his name when no one says it. Karen, she was at the curb with a box in her arms. Patrick wrestling a flat-pack dresser out of a trunk with more energy than wisdom. Emily, behind them, balancing a stack of books. The lantern swallowed them and breathed them back out as silhouettes in stairwell glass. I stood there a long time with my hand on the cool brass rail and watched the building take them in. 3 months later, I owned it. Part 2, the deed, and the lantern. It started with a call from a banker who remembered my hands. "Mr. Harper? Hector Ruiz at Oak River? We met years back when you came in to ask if a trust could buy a mower without spooking the IRS. "I remember, Hector," I said, smiling into the phone at the idea that a man could be remembered for how he treats a mower. "What can I do for you?" he asked. "I want to set up an LLC," I said. "Something quiet, Lantern Harbor maybe. And I want to talk to someone about commercial financing for a small multifamily. 20 units. Brick. Old bones. Downtown." "You found a building," he said, "the way a fisherman says you found a lake." "I found a maybe," I said. He didn't waste my time. He didn't try to sell me anything I didn't ask for. He told me what I needed. 2 years of returns from the trust. Proof of funds for a down payment. A management plan that didn't look like I'd Googled it last night. "And patience," he said. Sellers of old buildings put the word slow in escrow. I called Marla. "Has Mr. Feldman ever talked about selling?" I asked. She snorted. "Every Tuesday," she said. Then he says he'll die in his chair, and I should stuff him in the boiler room if it happens before Friday. You want to talk to him? Yes, I said, trying not to sound like a man reaching for a rope. Mr. Feldman was 80 if he was a day. He wore an undershirt under a button-down that had seen 100 washes. He sat in an office where the blinds were half closed against a sun he suspected was up to something. You, the guy with the card? He asked. I am, I said. You rich? He asked, which is a question old men are allowed to ask younger. Old men, comfortable, I said, and respectful. He grunted. You'll need both. He walked the building at a pace that made the minutes respectful, too. He thumped radiators and flicked light switches with the confidence of a man who'd won 100 coin tosses. He knocked on Unit 3B to test the sound, not because he needed to see inside. He didn't need to. I did. I knew 3B was where Karen and Patrick had landed because I'd seen Emily's photo from a new kitchen with beige cabinets and a window over a cheerful blue wall. Rent's low, Feldman said. My brother says I'm a sucker. I say people get to live. Market? I asked, because a deal that starts without numbers ends with regret. 850 in the ones, he said. 12 in the twos. I charged 6 and 9. I remember when a one-bedroom cost a handshake and first month free. What comes with the building? I asked. A boiler that hates February, he said. A roof with 10 good years if you keep the drains honest. 3 tenants who will tell you their birthdays before their names. And Marla, who could manage the Vatican with a notepad and a pencil. He had a price in mind. It was not the price I wanted. It was the price the building deserved. I can do that, I said, if you can do this. I slid a paper across his desk with a clause about access, clause about records, and a line about the building not knowing it's changing hands until we both say so. He read slow. He signed slower. Don't be a slumlord, he said. I won't, I said. Due diligence is a phrase that sounds like homework and feels like confession. Roofs, boilers, sewer lines, past water bills tell stories if you let them. Old repair tickets sing too. I read them at a motel desk with a yellow pad and a pen that bled through if I pressed too hard. Lantern Harbor LLC formed like a ship in a bottle. Hector called. You're approved, he said. Sellers like cash. We like a man who knows what a boiler can do to a life. Thank you, I said. Feldman called on a Thursday. I changed my mind, he said, and my stomach did a thing. I hadn't felt since the day Margaret told me the doctor's voice had the wrong kind of quiet. About the price? I asked. About dying in the chair, he said. Come sign on Monday. On Monday I signed. He handed me a ring of keys. So heavy it felt like an oath. He handed Marla a smaller ring with 2 new keys on it and said, I'll come back to visit when my Mets are in the series. He chuckled, like he'd given us a promise that wouldn't get called in soon. That afternoon, I sat on the lobby bench under the lantern's brass nameplate and learned a building's breath. The stairwell had a particular echo. 2 floors down, cleared its throat every 20 minutes, like a man saying, I'm still here, don't forget me. The hall paint was scuffed at shoulder height where time walked. Marla brought me a clipboard and a coffee I didn't need. You gonna hike rents? She asked, not accusing, just making a map. I'm going to raise them to market, I said, with notice. With options. With kindness where it's not, a cover for cowardice. She nodded. There's a difference, she said. People can feel it even if they can't name it. I ran numbers until they got quiet. A fair building cannot run on charity in WD-40. It needs rent that pays for roofs and heat. And the salary of a woman who can manage the Vatican with a pencil. The notices went out the following week. 90 days. Because I wanted the building to breathe between one number and the next. The ones would go from 6 to 9. The twos from 9 to 12. Every tenant got a letter that said the same thing in different ways. This is what it costs to keep us standing. Here are resources. Here are options. Here's my door if you need to talk like a person. I left the last 2 letters on my desk until they felt warm. Karen and Patrick. Unit 3B. I wrote the same numbers. I added no poison. I did not sharpen a line. I did not write anything different to my daughter than I wrote to the man in 2A, who plays trumpet on Tuesday afternoons in a way that makes the stairwell sound like it was designed for it. I signed my name. I sealed the envelopes, took them to the third floor myself. The hallway smelled like coffee and dryer sheets. I could hear the soft cheep of a game show host somewhere through drywall. I set the letters down at each door and knocked once, not to startle, just to mark the moment. At 3B, the door opened before my knuckles touched wood. Karen stood there in leggings and a sweatshirt that said Tigers in cracked gold letters, hair up, eyes tired. Patrick was behind her at the kitchen island, scrolling a phone like it might blink out and save him the trouble of making a decision. She saw me and did a thing with her mouth that wasn't a shape I had a word for. Surprise and a kind of shame. That had nothing to do with rent. Dad, she said. Hi, honey, I said. I handed her the envelope. This is for you. Her eyes flicked from my face to the paper. What is it? Her voice had the careful edge of a person touching a pan they suspect might still be hot. Notice of rent increase, I said. I kept my voice normal. I did not add meaning the way a man can accidentally add venom to a simple sentence. She tore. It opened and read. The color drained and came back in patches. This must be a mistake, she said. No, I said. It's market. From 9 to 12, she asked. For everyone, I said. Across the building? Who even owns this place? Patrick asked, stepping up like a man invited to a fight. Some slumlord who wants to squeeze us. I'll file a complaint. We have rights. You do? I said. It's all in the letter. Who owns it? He repeated. I took a breath I didn't know I'd been saving. Lantern Harbor LLC, I said. That's me. Karen stared. Patrick laughed and didn't find what he was looking for in the sound. You bought our building? Yes. I said, you did this to punish me, Karen said. Not a question, not a scream. Statement tried out for size. I did this because a good building was for sale, and I had the means to take care of it, I said. This letter is the same. As every other letter in this hall, you raised it because of me, she said. I raised it because roofs cost what roofs cost, I said. Patrick's face went red in a way that matched nothing in the room. I don't have to take this, he said. You can't triple rent. We'll sue. It's not triple, Patrick, I said quietly. You were paying 9. The letter says 12. He flung his hands. Still robbery. I can help you find resources, I said. I can list local assistance. I can give you a plan. I can't keep pretending math is mercy. Karen stared at the letter. Her finger traced the line where my signature sat in blue ink. You came to my door, she whispered, and I couldn't tell what part of the sentence held the pain. I did, I said. I came because paper in a mailbox is a cold way to learn your life is changing. Patrick took the letter from her hand and crumpled it. Get out, he said to me. Patrick, Karen said, warning in her tone I hadn't heard in years. It's fine, I said. I'll be downstairs at the desk tomorrow from 9 to noon. Anyone who wants a conversation can have one. I left them in a kitchen that had 2 chairs and 1 conversation. Back in the lobby, Marla looked up. Well, it's done, I said. That's never what I'm asking, she said gently. How are you? It's like a man who just told his own daughter that roofs cost what roofs cost, I said. She nodded. That's a feeling most banks don't put in their brochures. The next morning, the building's life showed up in 1s and 2s. Miss Dolores from 1A came with a tin of cookies and a plan that involved her niece moving in after the new year. Did the lease allow that? It didn't, not without approval. We wrote a path. The trumpeter from 2A asked if Tuesdays could be a little earlier, because a new baby in 2C had opinions about jazz after 8. A grad student from 3D showed me a spreadsheet and asked if paying quarterly would save her $5. It wouldn't. I found 6 anyway, at 11:58. Emily appeared at the door like a habit that had decided to become a choice. She held a coffee. In each hand, one's black, she said. Like a moral. I'll take the other, I said. She sat. Mom's mad, she said. I know. She says you planned this. I didn't plan to be your landlord, I said. I planned to keep a building from losing its bones. She says you're tripling her rent, Emily said. Eyebrows lifted like the math had been done in a hurry. It's 12, I said. She was paying 9. She says you're a slumlord, Emily said. And it would have hurt more if she hadn't said it with a smile she couldn't quite suppress. Asked away about the boiler I scheduled. I said, ask 1B about the leak we fixed before it made. A friend. Ask Marla about the raise I gave her. Emily took a sip and watched me the way you watch a person you love do a high-wire act. I saw you leave the letter. I watched from the stairwell window. Mom, she stopped and started again. She made this bed. Did. I said, she looked at the brass plaque in the lobby where the building's name gleamed. Brighter in the parts time couldn't reach. Did you name it? She asked. It was the lantern long before me, I said. I'm just polishing the brass. She nodded. Have an idea, she said. It's small. It might be dumb. Small and dumb have won wars, I said. What is it, rooftop? String lights? Warm weather? Residents bring something. Call it the lantern's lanterns. People who know each other are kinder when the boiler knocks. I smiled. Marla could manage the Vatican, I said. Can manage a string of lights. Emily stood. I'll help, she said. And Grandpa, yeah. Thank you for not writing a different number on our letter, she said. It would have been easier to be cruel. It only seems easier, I said. Cruelty collects its bill with interest. That afternoon, Karen came down alone. She stood in front of the desk and crossed. Her arms like a person keeping a coat closed in a wind that hadn't started yet. I can't afford it, she said flat. I hear you, I said. We can set up a plan. We could talk about a smaller unit. We can talk about a roommate clause. We can talk about you moving to a building that fits your number without me in the lobby. You want me gone, she said. I want you okay, I said. If that looks like here, we'll make a map. If it looks like somewhere else, we'll print directions. She stared at me until I could feel the air get thin. You humiliated me, she said. Twice. First the house. Now this. I told you the truth both times, I said. It felt like humiliation because the truth arrived without the excuses we were used to. She shook her head as if a sound she didn't like had landed near her ear. Patrick's looking for a lawyer, she said. Okay. He says retaliation is illegal. It is, I said. This isn't that. She narrowed her eyes. How do you know? Because I wrote the same numbers on every letter, I said. You're my daughter. That fact is a knot I won't cut through just to feel clever. She flinched like the word daughter had a burr. She turned to go, then stopped. Do you remember the summer at Table Rock Lake? She asked, voice softer. Then the lobby air had felt all day. You made pancakes on a camp stove that kept dying. I remember, I said. You cried when the maple syrup ran out, and we ate them with honey. I wasn't crying about syrup, she said. I thought you'd be mad we forgot to buy enough, you said. We have enough of everything that counts. We did, I said. She looked at the letter in her hand like it was a map she wanted to argue with. I'm not ready to be poor, she said. You're not, I said. You're on the other side of a story that said other people's money was yours to spend. She walked away with her shoulders drawn like lines on graph paper. I watched until the stairwell swallowed her. That night, the boiler knocked exactly 3 times before settling into the kind of steady that makes people sleep. I stood in the dark lobby with the brass plaque and the mailboxes and the smell of someone's dinner sitting soft in the air. And I thought about the shape of mercy and the shape of math and how to keep a building standing without breaking the people who stand inside it. 3 months to the day after I first saw the blue wall and the brass plaque. I signed my name on a stack of documents that made me responsible for 20 homes. That same afternoon, I wrote a letter to a woman who isn't here to read it. Maggie, I bought a building. I am learning that roofs talk in February, and people talk when the rent changes, and both kinds of talk are important. Our daughter is angry. Our granddaughter is making string lights out of nothing. The man in 2A plays trumpet like the stairwell was a stage. The woman in 1A bakes a sugar cookie that forgives a multitude of sins. The heat knocks when it wants attention. I keep saying yes to the right noises and no to the wrong ones. I am trying to be a good man that a building might trust. I miss your lemon bars. I miss your hand on my shoulder when I wrote numbers on legal pads. I miss your eyebrows when I was about to make a choice you didn't like and you made me love it anyway. If you were here, you'd tell me not to be precious about being right. You'd say, be decent and do the job in front of you. The job in front of me is roofs and letters and a lobby where people can cry without shame. Love. Frank I folded the letter and put it in the drawer with the title, the bylaws, and a photograph of Margaret on a July day, not long enough for what it had to hold. The next morning, Patrick sent a message to the building email with the subject line, legal action. He wrote about slumlords and retaliation in capital letters. I forwarded it to Shelby with 4 words, answer when appropriate, please. And I went downstairs and signed for a delivery of clear outdoor bulbs on a string. A week later, the lanterns. Lanterns went up on the roof in a zigzag that made the evening look like it had a plan. Tenants brought folding chairs and potato salads. The man from 2A brought his trumpet and played the opening notes of a song that made Dolores from 1A close her eyes. Emily brought a stack of paper cups and wrote names on them in careful block letters. So no one would lose track of themselves, Karen stood in the shadow by the stairwell door for a long time, before she came all the way onto the roof. Patrick didn't. Come up. She walked to the rail and looked out at Springfield. At the blue line of the horizon where the city stops pretending it's big, she didn't speak to me. That was okay. The lights did what they do. They didn't judge who sat under them. It just made it easier to see what was already there. Asterisk, the email from my attorney, Shelby Pike, hit my inbox at 7:42 a.m. Plain subject line, precise teeth, re. Whitaker allegations Frank, attached is my response to Mr. Whitaker's assertions. Summary. Increase was posted uniformly across all units to market rates with 90 days notice. No protected activity. No retaliation. We will not accept partial payment as rent in full. If desired, we can accept use and occupancy with a written reservation of rights. But that's strategic. Your call. Offer payment plans, unit swaps, referrals to assistants. Document every conversation. Breathe. Serve the building. Let me handle the noise. S. Pike. The letter she drafted was short and clean, the way a good tool looks before you learn. What it can do, dear Mr. Whitaker. Lantern Harbor LLC has applied a uniform rent adjustment across all occupied units, effective after the statutory notice period. This adjustment is based on market data and building operating costs, and it applies to every unit, including 3B. It is not retaliation, selective, or punitive. Any partial payment tendered will not be accepted as rent in full. We remain open to reasonable payment plans, unit transfers, and referrals to community resources. Direct future communications to my office. Respectfully, Shelby G. Pike. Attorney at Lie read it, nodded once like a man deciding not to flinch, and printed 2 copies, one for the file, one for the drawer that held the building's quiet heart, the bylaws, the title, and a photograph of Margaret at a lake that looked like it could forgive anyone. First of the month days have a hum. By 8:05, Ms. Dolores from 1A arrived at the desk with a manila envelope and a foil-wrapped loaf of banana bread that could make peace with a winter morning. I baked, she announced. Baking keeps the hands from saying what the mouth will regret. Bless you, I said, meaning it in all the ways a man can mean a simple phrase. The trumpeter from 2A paid online and dropped a note. I'll do Tuesdays at 6, if little ears in 2C still have opinions. The grad student in 3D slid at cashiers. Check across the counter, cheeks pink from the cold. She asked if paying quarterly saved her $5. I found her 6 anyway by correcting a trash fee coded wrong a decade ago. Marla took calls, kind as a weather report that tells the truth without scare tactics. At 10:30, the elevator doors sighed open, and my daughter stepped out. Karen wore a sweatshirt with Missouri State in letters, cracked from 100 washes. Patrick followed, jaw clenched like he'd been chewing on a nail. He carried an envelope that bulged wrong. Karen set it on the counter. $900, she said, like we've been paying. Didn't touch it. Shelby's words whispered in my head. accepting partial payment. As rent in full can kiss your leverage goodbye. I can't accept that as rent in full, I said. We can do a written plan. We can accept it as use and occupancy with a reservation of rights, but not as rent in full. Patrick let out a laugh that had no humor in it. You're really doing this? Doing it for everyone, I said. The same for you as for 2A and 1D and 3E. Karen looked at the envelope, the way fingers sometimes reach toward a pan they know is hot. We can't make 12. She said, flat, not defensive, not pleading. A fact. Then let's make a plan, I said. Smaller unit. Roommate clause. It's building on Kimbrough with 1 bedrooms at $950. I know the owner. I can broker an introduction. You want us out? Patrick snapped. I want you housed and safe, I said. Here, if it can work. Somewhere else, if it can't. He slid the envelope back into his coat pocket with a jerk. We'll talk to a lawyer. Please do, I said, and have them call Shelby. They were 2 steps from the elevator when Karen turned back. Do you ever get tired? She asked softly. Of being right? All the time, I said, but roofs don't care how tired I am. They rode up without another word. A moment later, the elevator dinged on 3, and silence resettled in the lobby like dust in a flower shop by noon. Most of the envelopes were in the lockbox. And my ledger had the kind of numbers that let a man schedule a boiler check without handing God his hat and telling him he could take the afternoon off. At 5:07 p.m., the first fuse went. The lobby lights clicked, buzzed, and died, leaving a soft, emergency glow from the stairwell exit signs and the hum of the soda machine. In old buildings, you can hear electricity like a feeling. When it leaves, the air changes shape. I grabbed the flashlight from the drawer and headed for the basement. Marla met me at the top of the stairs with her own beam, jaw set. Didn't trip at the desk, she reported. This is down below. Pushed through the basement door into air that smelled like damp brick and old soap. The fuse box is behind a locked metal panel, gray dented, cut for a padlock decades ago, and then replaced with a deadbolt. My key slid in like it was glad to see me. The panel swung open. Half the breakers were thrown down. Not tripped thrown. You can tell by the way the toggle sits hard against the bottom, not the lazy middle of a true trip. Someone had done this. On purpose, Marla shone her light at the lock. The metal around it showed fresh, bright scratches, as if someone had worked a flat head into the gap and leaned. Butter knife, she muttered, or a cheap screwdriver. Let's put the building back on, I said. We lifted the toggles, 1, 2, 3, way down the bank. And the building woke up floor by floor, the hum of the boiler. The sigh of the hall lights, a radio through a wall, blinked back into a song mid-chorus. I called the non-emergency line. Basement panel was tampered with, I said. We need an officer to take a report. Officer Beck came 20 minutes later, lean and laconic. The kind of man who looks like he's seen enough to stop being impressed by nonsense. He took photos. He took notes. He looked at the scratches and nodded as if they'd told him a good joke with a bad punchline. Got cameras? He asked. Not yet, I said. They're scheduled for next week. I felt the words like rain you can smell before it hits. Any disputes? He asked. It's a building, I said. There are always disputes. We posted rent increases. 1 apartment on 3 is unhappy. I didn't say my daughter's number. Didn't have to. He didn't write it down. He didn't need to. We'll cruise past a little more tonight, he said. If you think of anything, call. He left with the sound of a man whose boots know stairs. At 7:32 p.m., the phone rang again.
Alla picked
Up, listened, closed her eyes, and handed me the receiver like she was passing a hot pan. Harper, said. A man from Tui, voice shaky. Someone slashed the tire on the maintenance cart, he blurted. The one you use to haul salt bags. For the softener, it's flat as a pancake. We went out back with flashlights. The little 2-wheeled cart leaned at a sick angle. One tire sagged and bitten with a clean, mean cut. Not a crack, a blade. It's petty, small, dangerous in the way a person who feels entitled is dangerous. Marla made a soft noise in her throat and then straightened. I'll pull the old motion camera from the laundry room window, she said. It's a dinosaur, but it sometimes catches the alley. Do it, I said. While she went for the memory card, I closed the alley gate, replaced the padlock, and stared up at the third-floor windows. The curtain in 3B moved, maybe a draft, maybe a person who wanted to make sure their own eyes weren't catching the light. The old camera gave us something grainy. Gray, a figure in a hood and a cap tugged low, moving with the agitated efficiency of a man doing a thing he's too proud of and knows is stupid. He crouched by the cart, made a quick motion, and walked out of frame, careful to keep his face turned away. I called Officer Beck back. "We've got video," I said. Grainy, but movement. He came, watched the clip twice, and nodded. "Enough for a report," he said. "If you get a better angle, send it." After he left, I sat at the desk and watched the lobby door click open and shut on its soft hydraulic. People came home with grocery bags and denim jackets, and the kind of weariness that means you earned your day. Emily came in at 8 with her backpack and 2 coffees. "I heard," she said, setting both cups down and giving me the better one. "Mom's group chat is clicking like a cricket. She's not helpful." "You don't have to triangulate," I said. "You get to be a daughter without being a courier." She half smiled. "I brought you your spare office key back," she said, reaching into her pocket. The brass winked in her palm. "I shouldn't have it," closed her fingers back over it. "You keep it," I said. "You know how to lock the door and where the circuit maps are? That's worth more than the key itself." She studied me a second, then nodded and put the key back in her pocket. "Patrick gave me a key this afternoon, too," she said, "to his old storage unit on Sunshine. He asked me to go get a toolbox and not tell you." "How did you do?" I asked, though I already knew by the shape of her mouth. "I gave it back," she said. "I told him I don't run errands for secrets." We sat without talking for a stretch that felt like a rest between songs. In the quiet, you could hear the building doing its job, holding heat, catching footsteps, turning the wind into a low, locked hum. "Grandpa," she said finally, "are you safe?" "I am," I said. "And so are you." "We have eyes on the doors. We have Officer Beck's card. We have a boiler that only asks for respect." "I'm going to stay down here for a while," she said, "if you don't mind." "I'd be glad," I said. We played gin rummy on the counter with an old deck from the drawer. She beat me 3 hands straight and pretended not to notice me pretending not to let her. When she left at 10, she hugged me in that quick, fierce way she'd had since she was 9, and convinced affection is fast, because the world is always running. At 11:14 p.m., Karen came down alone. She stood at the edge of the lobby like a person at the lip of a pool, not sure if the water is cold. Her hair was down. She looked young and very tired. "I didn't do the fuse," she said without preface. "I don't do it. I know." I said, "I did know. My daughter's sins are mostly of omission. Why she lets the wrong person steer. That's a sin that leaves fewer fingerprints." "He's angry," she said. "He says you're trying to embarrass him. You're trying to run a building," I said. "If he's embarrassed by numbers, that's a problem arithmetic won't fix." She winced, not because the sentence was cruel, but because it was correct. "I didn't know about the lottery," she said, voice small. "I didn't know how much you carried." "I didn't tell you," I said. "Maybe I should have. Maybe I thought I was protecting you from something that turned out to be a rope I should have tied around your waist." She looked at the key bowl on the counter, where residents sometimes left an extra to lend to a neighbor who watched their cat. She reached into her pocket, took out a key, and set it down. Patrick's storage unit tag clinked against the brass. "He asked me to move some things," she said. I said no. "That's your choice," I said. She looked toward the stairwell. "I'm not ready to move," she said, almost to herself. "I'm not ready to be the woman who couldn't make a home." "They made one," I said. "It just might not be in 3B. She closed her eyes a second, then opened them, and nodded like a person rehearsing the next word of a sentence they've never said aloud. "Good night, Dad," she whispered. "Good night," I said. The next morning, she'll be emailed again. "Received a letter from Mr. Whitaker's counsel," it began. "All bark, no bite," I'll reply. "Install the cameras today. Send me the invoices for the cut tire and the tampered panel." Hector from the bank texted, "Booster for your cameras my nephew installs. Cheap and clean by noon." We had 4 small lenses watching the lobby, the alley, the basement door, and the fuse panel. None of them obtrusive. The building blinked once, as if approving, at 3:02 p.m. The cameras caught someone in a ball cap trying the fuse panel door again. The deadbolt held. The figure looked around, pulled his cap lower, and walked out of frame. The lobby camera picked him up a beat later, face turned away, gait familiar enough to make my stomach tighten. I didn't call his name. I called Officer Beck. He came, watched the clip, and sighed. "We can print stills," he said. "You can knock on a door without a battering ram. You can make a note in a file that's starting to have weight." "Do it," I said. When the first 5-day notice for non-payment went out to 3B rent due, the first grace to the 5th, as one arrived on the 6th, I felt it like a bruise I'd rubbed by mistake. The paper is bland. The words are bureaucratic. The meaning is a cliff. Karen didn't come down. Patrick did. He crushed the notice in his fist and dropped it in the lobby trash can with a show of contempt that played poorly for an audience of metal and plastic. "See you in court," he said. "You will," I said quietly. That night, Emily came by with textbooks and a bag of takeout that smelled like garlic and mercy. We ate at the desk, the building settling around us like a dog finding a comfortable shape. She pulled the office key out of her pocket and held it up in the lobby light. "I'm keeping this one," she said, smiling just enough to let me breathe. "It opens something that needs me, and the other." I asked. She patted her back pocket. "I'll return it tonight," she said. "Don't carry keys to secrets." When she left, I watched her climb the stairs with steady feet. Sat a long time after that, hearing the boiler say, "I'm here," in its low February voice, even though it was only October. Some things give you their winter early so you can see if you've got enough wood stacked. At 9:50, a tap came at the glass. Officer Beck, hat in hand. "Pulled stills," he said. "We'll make a visit in the morning." "Thank you," I said. He nodded toward the brass plaque and the string of new camera lights. "She's looking good," he said, meaning the building. "She's learning to keep her eyes open." I said, "Good habit," he replied. When the lobby was empty, I took out a clean sheet of paper and wrote another letter I didn't know where to send. "Maggie, the building went dark last night. We lit it again. Our girl brought back a key I wish I could keep for her. She kept the one that matters. I learned today that mercy and arithmetic can sit at the same table without breaking the chairs. It's a crowded table, but we're finding room. Love." Frank I folded it, put it in the drawer with the rest, and turned out the desk lamp. The lantern slept. The cameras winked. The boiler kept count. Asterisk, the courthouse hallway smelled like burnt coffee and old floor wax. Shoes squeaked. Shh, someone laughed too loud. A bailiff stirred, powdered creamer into a styrofoam cup, and watched the swirl as if it might choose a verdict. Shelby sat beside me. A legal pat on her knee, calm as a metronome. "It's a straightforward possession hearing," she said. "Non-payment. After a proper notice, we're not here to litigate family history." Patrick arrived in a suit that fit like a dare. Karen walked beside him, face pale, shoulders squared. A woman choosing to hold herself up until she could lean somewhere honest. Their attorney young, shiny, eager rifled papers like a magician who'd lost the rabbit. The judge took the bench and the room rearranged itself around his voice. We told our side in a dozen sentences. Notice posted and mailed. Uniform increased to market across all units with 90 days. Partial payment refused as rent in full. Shelby offered a payment plan and a unit swap, in writing, 3 separate times. Their attorney called it retaliation and waved at the air. The judge didn't watch the waving. "Did you pay the amount due?" he asked. Patrick set his jaw. He tendered $900. "The ledger shows 0 accepted rent this month," the judge said, looking over his glasses. "Offer of USAND occupancy, with reservation of rights, declined by the tenant. Counsel, Yon and Shiny lost a little of both. We dispute the increase," he said. "You can dispute it," the judge said evenly, "and you can pay or not pay. One choice has one consequence, the other another." He signed the order slowly, the pen scratching like a small animal. Judgment for possession. Stay of enforcement for 10 days to allow relocation or to pay the full amount and costs. Parties are free to enter a new agreement. Gavel paper. The sound of a room forgetting names. Outside, the wind had a blade to it. October in Missouri. Can cut despite the sun. Shelby touched my sleeve. This is the part where you stay decent in the face of their story, she said. I'll file the writ if they don't pay. If they pay, you accept like any other tenant. Either way, breathe. We were halfway down the steps when Officer Beck's number lit my phone. You at the Lantern? He asked. Courthouse? I said. 10 minutes out. Swing by, he said. We've got something. The lobby cameras had done their quiet work. Beck had printed stills from the basement at 3:02 p.m. the day after the fuse pull. The figure's cap was low, but the angle caught enough of a cheekbone, enough of a chin. He'd gone door to door politely that morning with another officer and the images in a folder. To be a kid on a scooter said, "Hey, that guy lives on 3. When Beck knocked at 3B, Patrick opened the door with insult preloaded. Beck didn't. Fire back, he asked to talk. Patrick said no and then talked anyway, the way a man does when his own story sounds better inside his head. Karen stood behind him, eyes on the floor. Emily, coming up the stairs with a tote of groceries. I paused, one landing down and listened with her face. Sir, Beck said in the calm voice that makes unreasonable men notice their own volume. We have video that suggests someone tampered with the basement panel and damaged property. We need to know where you were. Not there, Patrick said. I don't do basements. Emily set down her tote, pulled out her phone, and walked straight up to Officer Beck. I have something, she said. On the screen were screenshots of Patrick's texts from 2 nights earlier. Kay, can you get my toolbox from the Sunshine Unit? Need to teach this slumlord a lesson?
Ow.
He thinks the building runs on his rules. We'll see how he likes the dark. And the follow-up when she didn't reply? You in or not? Keep it quiet. Emily's voice didn't shake. He gave me the key, she said. I gave it back. I'm not part of this. Beck glanced at me, and then at Karen, whose face changed. Shape in a way you don't want to have happen in a lobby with your neighbors walking by. Ma'am, he asked gently, do you feel safe? She swallowed. Not when he's angry, she said. And the lobby air made a new space around the words. Beck's partner stepped forward. Sir, I'm issuing a summons for criminal damage. And tampering, he said to Patrick. You'll receive a court date. If you come back to the panel, we'll upgrade this conversation. In the meantime, I'm advising you not to touch any building systems. Patrick's laugh was too loud for the room. This is harassment, he said. Even as he took the paper, because a hand that wants to look strong still knows how to accept an unavoidable thing, Beck turned to Karen again. Softer. You can apply for an order of protection, he said. Based on these messages and what you've just said, if you want help, we'll walk you through it. That cold morning, Emily tugged a knit hat over her hair and said the sentence that changed how 3B ended. Mom, she said, come with me. They didn't go back upstairs. They walked 3 blocks to the courthouse annex and sat in a plastic chair under a poster about flu shots. Karen told a clerk the worst truths of her marriage in a voice that sounded like someone had turned the volume knob wrong. Paper printed with official ink. The judge signed. A temporary order, no contact, no return to the unit. The law's thin. Skin, but a skin nonetheless. Karen came back to the Lantern, holding the protective order like a map. She walked to the desk where I sat with a ledger and 3 keys on a ring. Her hand shook. I can't keep the apartment at 12 alone. She said, I can't keep the apartment with him either. We'll move you, I said. 1D opens Friday, 9:50. Small, warm, good light in the morning. We'll transfer your deposit. No penalties. The lease will say one name. She nodded. The motion small, precise. The way a person takes a pill they know is good for them. And hates the taste. I'll take it, she said. The writ for possession on 3B went through because the rent wasn't paid. Beck and a civilian mover stood by while Patrick fetched 2 duffel bags and a box of chargers. The rest the couch, the table the dresser. He'd grunted out of the trunk on moving day stayed for the set-out crew. He didn't look at me as he left. He didn't say my name, didn't say hers. The elevator doors closed on aversion. Of a life that had depended too long on other people's heat, we changed the lock on 3B and painted the scuffed baseboards a clean line of white. A travel nurse from Mercy, with a calm laugh and a calendar that included nights, signed a lease. She put a plant in the front window and a red kettle on the stove, and the unit exhaled. Karen moved into 1D with 3 boxes, 2 lamps, and the yellow mixing bowl that had been Margaret's. She started a job at the thrift store on Chestnut the next week, part-time, then more. She learned the bus schedule, learned to like her own coffee, learned that a person can be proud and still ask for a ride in the rain. On the 1st of the next month, she came to the desk with a money order and a breath I could hear. "I've got the whole thing," she said, setting it down. And the sound the paper made on wood was more beautiful to me than a symphony. We didn't become saints. We didn't forget. We had coffee on my back stoop a week later and talked about Margaret's lemon bars and the way grief changes the temperature of a kitchen. We didn't talk about Patrick until she did, and when she did, it was not to ask me to fix him. People love to tell this story with the wrong math. He tripled their rent, they say, and maybe it makes a cleaner headline. The truth is less cinematic and more useful. I raised every unit to what it costs to keep a roof honest. I did it with notice and options. I did it for my daughter. The same as I did it for the man in 2A who plays trumpet at 6 now because of a baby with opinions. I enforced the rules like they were there on purpose. I learned that mercy and arithmetic can sit at the same table without breaking the chairs. Winter came. The boiler knocked when it wanted attention. We knocked back with a wrench and a maintenance log. Emily signed her own lease into Sia's studio that fit the way her life grew. She kept the office key. "It opens something that needs me," she said, and she was right. Marla got a raise and a new chair because Vatican-level management requires lumbar support. Miss Dolores in 1A brought gingerbread in December and wrote a note on a napkin that said, "Thank you for running this place like people live here in January." I wrote one last letter to Margaret and tucked it into the drawer with the rest. Mags, the lantern stands. Our daughter's name is on a lease that fits her hand. Our granddaughter has her own door. The man who wanted to teach me a lesson learned one instead. I am learning to be the kind of landlord I wish we'd had when the roof leaked in '89 and the only repair was a promise. There are lights on the roof that look like a party, even when no one's up there. Sometimes I go up and sit under them alone, and it feels like you left a chair for me. Love, Frank in the spring. We strung the bulbs again and called the night the lanterns, because once you name a thing, it can become a tradition. The tenants brought folding chairs and potato salad. The trumpeter played a song that made the stairwell sound like it was designed for instruments. Karen came up and leaned on the rail beside me. Emily danced with Ms. Dolores's grandniece, both of them laughing hard enough to be heard over the city. People tell me I got revenge. I didn't. I got a building. I got a ledger that adds up, and a lobby where my granddaughter can study, and a roof where my daughter can breathe. I got a table where numbers and decency eat the same meal. I got to keep a promise to a woman who taught me that being right is a cheap thrill and being kind is a job. The story started in a kitchen where my daughter told me to pay rent or get out. It ends under string lights on a roof I keep lit with the people I love living within the same brick and rules. With the map of our family redrawn to include the truth, that's enough.